There is a balm in Gilead. Run, sinner, run, hunt you a hiding place. Oh, you better run, sinner, run, hunt you a hiding place. Run, sinner, run. When I first came in contact with the spiritual, I have to say it was something that I enjoyed singing. It was just always relevant to my needs, but I didn't necessarily know anything about the history of it. And I've since then seen that lots of schools choose to end their program with spirituals. The rhythms are so interesting. The syncopated rhythms add so much energy to the sound. And they figure it's fun. The melodies are always wonderful. And so they tend to end programs with some arrangement of a spiritual. It's difficult, however, to conceive that something that somebody enjoys so much now is not really frivolous music. It is music that was born from a lot of pain.
to dare to give a definition of the spiritual, I think I'll use the definition that Dr. Uzi Brown gave at a recent symposium. He says that the spiritual is sacred song, born of the individual spirit, arising when a particular need or occasion could be expressed through music. It arose out of people's need to express their innermost longings for freedom, I might add, faith, hope, and thankfulness for grace bestowed on the most downtrodden and oppressed of God's children. And these people were certainly downtrodden and oppressed. These were Africans that were brought to the United States, auctioned off as slaves, and made to work on these cotton plantations. They were taken away from family and friends, from their language, from their culture, brought to this strange land and forced to adapt to a different way of life. They use these songs to ease the pain, to encourage each other, to send messages to each other, to encourage themselves. It was music that was used in so many ways in life, as they learned the new language in the United States, as they learned a new religion, Christianity. So the Negro spiritual became an expression too of their faith, and they identified very much with the Bible. And so in a lot of the songs, there is this mix of Christian ideas, Christian concepts of morality, Christian ideals. And a lot of the people in the Bible became representative of their own sorrow. So for example, the plight of the Israelites as they left Egypt became their own. And Dr. Rene Boyer tells us that biblical stories which told about people who overcame great odds, bits and pieces of prayers and sermons influenced the slaves in this text that they chose. The stories provided role models for all who believed that, like the biblical characters, they too might one day overcome their captivity and again be free. Numerous references to the Israelites in Egypt, Moses, David, Ezekiel, Abraham, Elijah, Jacob are just a few of those that were referenced. But it wasn't like they thought about these texts necessarily. A lot of it was spontaneous, out of their faith, born from their faith and their feelings at any given moment in time. And there are certainly feelings that we can identify with. Feelings of sadness and despair, suffering and sorrow, love and judgment, grace and hope, justice and mercy, forgiveness. These are all mirrored in the texts of these melodies. And we all recognize the beauty of these texts. But after 1865, with the emancipation of the slaves, they didn't want to have anything more to do with these plantation songs. And so they moved west, they moved north to find jobs, many of them. They walked away too from the spiritual. And there was a rebirth of the spiritual with these students from Fisk University in Tennessee, when they needed to find ways of supplementing or paying for studies, that they went to other parts of the U.S. where people had never heard of their songs to share these songs. They also went to Europe and they sang before royalty. These melodies that were so beautiful, and these were professional singers. So there was a new recognition of the worth of this music. And then other students from other universities started to do the same, hoping to be as successful as the Fisk University singers, Jubilee singers had been. Even professional singers went to Europe, seeking the same kind of fame.
On the mountain, my Lord spoke, out of his mouth came fire and smoke. Looked all around me, it looked so fine. I asked my Lord if all was mine. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I pray. Jordan River is chilly and cold. It chills the body, but not the soul. There ain't but one train on this track. It runs to heaven and right back. Oh, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving holy, this train. This train is bound for glory, this train. This train is bound for glory. If you ride it, you must be holy. This train is bound for glory, this train.
Oh, when the
This train is bound for glory, this train.
oh, when the
This train is bound for glory, this train.
oh, hallelujah.
This train is bound for glory. If you ride it, you must be holy. This train is bound for glory, this train.
Oh, when the
This train is bound for glory, this train.
oh, when the
This train is bound for glory, this train.
oh, hallelujah.
This train is bound for glory. If you ride it, you must be holy. This train is bound for glory, this train.
Spirituals can be categorized. There are many different categories of the Negro spiritual. They talk about a call and response type, where a leader begins a line and then is followed by a choral response, often sung to a fast rhythmic tempo, like "Ain't that good news, or "Swing low, sweet chariot," which we're going to do today for you. And then you have the slow and melodic kind, where you have songs with sustained expressive phrasing, and it's generally a slower tempo. So like we're going to do for you Balm in Gilead, that would be one of those. And then you have fast and rhythmic kind of songs like Witness and Every Time I Feel the Spirit, both of which we'll do with you for you today. We talked about the lyrics, oftentimes expressing, talking about characters in the Bible, because it was as though the slaves identified with these characters that were going through so much pain, and they found their most favorite person to identify with was Jesus Christ himself, because they knew that he would help them. And the songs they sang bore testimony to their faith. 1892, when Antoine Dvorak came to the U.S. to be the director of the National Conservatory of Music, he came to be the director, but he also came wanting to help America find its own national music. When he heard the spiritual, he commented that this is really inspiration for national music, or the inspiration for truly national music might be derived from the Negro melodies or the Indian chants. And he said he was led to take that view partly because the so-called plantation songs were indeed the most striking and appealing melodies that we have yet found on this side of the water. And because of his association with Burleigh, H.T. Burleigh, he encouraged him to record some of these melodies. And out of their association, Burleigh, a composer and a singer, also a student then it seemed, he composed Deep River for choir with piano accompaniment. But also with the Fisk singers, as they took the music to Europe, there became a need to have some of these songs written down, these plantation songs written down. And there's more record kept of these music. But you know, there were about 6,000 recorded spirituals. But there must have been many, many more, because people were passing on these songs orally. And so a lot of them might have been lost. And so there is really no knowledge of how many there are.
To make the wonder whole.
is truly impressive about the American Negro spiritual is this. It traverses, according to Hall Johnson, it traverses every shade of emotion without spilling over in any direction. Its most tragic utterances are without pessimism, and its lightest, brightest moments have nothing to do with frivolity. In its darkest expressions, there is always a hope, and in its gayest measures, a constant reminder. This music was born out of the heart cries of people that were captive, but who still did not forget how to laugh. This music covers an amazing range of moods, as we've talked about. Nevertheless, it is always serious music and should be performed seriously in the spirit of its original conception. Wise words.